Hello, hello. My name is Jennifer, and this is Jen the Bookworm. And I appreciate you coming to check out my channel. If this is your first time, then welcome. If it is not, then thank you for coming back to support me and my channel. I appreciate you very much. So today is another book tag. I was tagged by Nicole from Nicole's Bookish Nook, and this is the Winter Essential Book Tag of 2022. Nicole really liked this tag because it was something a little different. It wasn't asking the same exact questions that some of these end of year book tags are doing. So she did this and she thought that I would like it too. Tagged me on it, and so I thought I would give it a shot. So the first prompt is Crackling Fires. Who is your favorite cold character who warmed up towards the end of the book or book series? I had to think about this one a little bit. I think from what I've read recently, I would have to say Mr. Bowditch from Fairy Tale by Stephen King. He is a crotchety old man character. He lives on his own with his dog. He doesn't want anyone, he's kind of the essential get off my lawn type man. He doesn't want anyone in his business. He doesn't want anyone in his home. He doesn't need anybody, doesn't want anybody until the moment he does. He is trying to clean his gutters, I think it was, and he fell and broke his leg. And a young boy, high school boy from the neighborhood, was riding his bike past his house and heard the dog and him, calling out for help, came and helped, called 911, but also volunteered to come stay and take care of the house, take care of the dog, until Mr. Bowditch got on his feet. But then Mr. Bowditch, it was a severe break, and he's an old person, so he needed some help after he got out of the hospital. And the kid, Charlie, volunteered to kind of help nurse him back, and he kind of, did a lot of home improvement stuff to the house that Mr. Bowditch couldn't do because of his age and ability. And just throughout the book, in the beginning, he was really kind of a crotchety old man, but he turned into a really cool character. And the relationship between Charlie and Mr. Bowditch was really, really sweet to read. So I would have to say he was the character that I feel was cold in the beginning and warmed up by the end of the book, and I really enjoyed him. So the next prompt is Snowflakes. What is a book that is full of unique characters? I would have to say Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire was a book that was just full of a lot of very different and unique characters. Not just different from each other, but different from what I had read before. Is a series of standalone companion books. This is the first in the series, and it's about children who have gone through portal worlds and come back, and how they have survived the portal worlds and how they survived coming back. Some of them are not as happy to be back. They've been in that portal world for a while, and they feel like that world is their home now, and this is not. When they're there in the portal world, they're someone special, but when they're here, they're not, as they're just them, and they didn't like that. So the first book was about a kind of boarding school type place for troubled kids. These are kids who all have visited a portal world and came back for whatever reason, and their parents don't believe them that they were in a different world. Nobody much believes them except for they believe each other, and they're sent here to for a variety of reasons, because the parents don't get them anymore, or they're scaring their siblings or whatever. So and it was a really good story. It was kind of a short story. It was about 4.5 hours long, 5 hours long, something like that. And I read the first one, I read that one, and I read the second book in the series, which from what I was told, the odd number books in the series are about them being here in our world, reminiscing about the old worlds, the portal worlds that they were in, and the even number books were about them in the portal world. So I read one of each. I enjoyed both of those books, but the first book in particular, Every Heart a Doorway, had a big cast of a lot of interesting characters. The next one says Gingerbread Family. Which fictional family would you want to be a part of? And I had to think about this one, but I think I would choose the Weasleys from the Harry Potter series. And yeah, the Weasleys were poor, and that wouldn't be great. But I was poor when I grew up too, so there were some things about being poor that you kind of find yourself and your values and stuff in that. There's no poor person that's going to say it sucks to be rich. It would suck to have all that money. Um, but not having had a ton of money growing up, I really didn't miss having a ton of money growing up that much. There were a couple of things that I wish were different, that our money situation had been different for, but there were a lot of things that I feel like I gained out of learning how to appreciate what I got, and learning how to be poor. So Weasley's being poor is kind of, a downside to being part of their family, but not really that down. But what I love about the Weasley family is just kind of how they come together. And there's a lot of them. So there's a lot of siblings picking on each other. There's a lot of that, but being a part of a large family, you don't lack for companionship, and you don't lack for something to do if you want to do something, and you don't lack for someone to do it with. So there's something very comforting about that, and there's something very comforting about being with a set of parents who, they have expectations for you. They want you to succeed in things. But also, I really felt like Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were the kind of parents that were very supportive parents. Like, they would support you on whatever you wanted to do. They have expectations for you, but if you have expectations for yourself, they want to help you with those. Being part of a family that loves each other like they obviously do, that are close like they obviously are, that's the kind of family that I would want to be a part of, and so that's who I chose. The next prompt is Blizzard. What book left you confused the whole time? And I had to really reach for this book, but I chose Stoner by John Williams. It's not that I didn't enjoy the book. I did enjoy the book, but that's part of what confused me. Like, I didn't get why it was so good. It was a very good book. It was very compelling. I could not explain to you in a way that would make you say, yeah, I understand why that was a good book, or I understand why you would have enjoyed that, because I didn't understand. The characters were not realistic. The portrayal of some of the characters were not realistic. The book was pretty low stakes. Like, they waited until the last third of the book to have any kind of plot happen. It was the story of a man who grew up on a farm and was thinking about going to school, had been given the opportunity to go to school for agricultural studies, and fell in love with literature instead, and changed his major and became a English major, became a teacher, and it was about his life. But there were some things I don't know why I liked them. I don't know why I enjoyed them. I did very much enjoy that book, but it left me a little confused as to how that was enjoyable. So the next prompt is gift giving. What is the last book gifted to you? I don't actually remember the last book that someone had given to me. Usually I buy my books myself. So there are some times when people have given me a gift certificate to a bookstore or an Amazon card or something like that for me to buy books, but not usually. I don't think I've had in recent times, in the last few years or whatever, I don't think someone's bought me a book, but perhaps, bought me an Amazon card so I could buy my own book. The next prompt is Snowball. Biggest book you've ever read? I think the biggest book I've read is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. It is the second book in the Stormlight Archive. It was humongous. It was 55 and some change hours long on audiobook. It was massive. So that's probably the biggest book I've read. The next prompt is wrapping paper. what is your most beat up book? And so I don't really have any of my physical books anymore. I only have a couple of them. I had to give them all away, and I use Kindle and or audiobook most often now. However, there's a book I really enjoyed for a long time. I really got into Kim Harrison's Rachel Morgan series, or the Hollow series. It's been called both. And the first book in the series really sets up the world. And I'm kind of I really, really like the first book in a series. And usually the first book will remain my favorite book in the series. Doesn't mean I won't enjoy and or read the next books in the series, but the first book, there's just something about it where they set up the world, where they set up the character, where everything is new and naive, and we haven't gone through all the troubles and the solutions and whatever of the next couple books. But I must have read this book. It was a mass market paperback. I must have read it, I don't know, several times. And then somebody asked if they could borrow it. So I lent them this book. And I got it back even more beat up than I had before. And then somebody else, I was working with a couple of ladies at my job where we were all talking about how we love to read, but we don't really know what to read that's new. So we each recommended a book to each other. And so I recommended this book, and I gave my version to one of the ladies there, and she absconded with it. She never returned it. Several times I tried to get it from her, but she never returned the book. But before she never returned the book, when she was bringing the book to work with her to read it and stuff like that, I noticed that she had really creased things up, that she spilled something on it. I was just... So she didn't give it back. I went and got a new copy anyway. But it was my most beat up book that I had had. Aside from a book, I also had this book from grade school. It was sort of like a Nancy Drew or Hardy's Boy type book, but it was Alfred Hitchcock, and there were like 3 kids that were investigating. The book was vaguely Hitchcockian or whatnot, or they really liked Hitchcock, and so I don't really remember exactly how Alfred Hitchcock was important to it, but he was part of his character. His name was lent to the books. And I did have that book for a really long time, and the binding broke and all of the pages were coming out, and I had to stuff all the pages in. So I guess that's a even more beat up book, but that's a kid's book from a long time ago, and so I didn't pick that one. So the next prompt is Christmas lights. What is a book that you own with many different colors on the cover? Again, I do audiobooks primarily, so I don't have a lot of books, but I was looking through my audiobooks and I found The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy. What animals on Earth reveal about aliens and ourselves? And I will put a picture of the book on the screen so you can see how colorful it is. Lots of different colors in there, and so it fits the bill. The colors with the black background even kind of look like Christmas lights a little bit to me. So the next prompt is ice skating. What is a book that has a plot that is all over the place? So before booktube, I discovered Sarah J. Maas, and I was reading the Throne of Glass series, and the first book I thought was enjoyable. The second book I thought was meandering. The third book I was starting to question myself. I don't know how many books I had gotten through. I think I got into the 5th book. It's the book that I've listed down here, The Empire of Storms. I think I was halfway through that book when I just put down the book and decided I didn't want to read that series anymore. But by the time I put it down, we'd had so many, now she's, in the first book, she went by a completely different name. Now she's a completely different person. It feels like she's, like a part Fae, should be the leader of whatever, a Fae, what community, or prince. She's a princess or something. She goes to she travels to find the Fae so that they can train her in her magic. She is going through and fighting different wars and fights and stuff with the Fae. She is dealing with all the Fae politics and stuff, but also the story goes back to the prince that she had a crush on at one point, but they're just friends now, and what he's going through, and he develops a crush on a not royal person, and he doesn't jive with his dad, and his dad was pissy about it, and his dad's not a good person. But we go back to his storyline, and then there was a completely separate storyline about some witches. They're dragon riders, and they're all in different clans of varying nastiness, and they all decide to get together so that they can, I don't know, show off and or I don't know, there's witch politics and stuff that they're all trying to maintain while they're showing off to one another while they're whatever. I think there was a fourth storyline too, but there was a couple of different major storylines, and it was almost like she took the book and decided, I'm going to write these 3 books, and I'm just going to mishmash them all together. Take the first 3 chapters of this, and then the first 3 chapters of this, and then go back to that, and then do this thing, and do this completely other thing. You'd get to the witches, and you just get to where you're into their story, and then you're not with the witches anymore. You're elsewhere, and it was all over the place. And I eventually lost the will to care about what was happening and put it down, and I have no plans to pick it back up again. The next prompt is the Christmas tree. What is your favorite character of all time? How dare you? I'm not sure I have a favorite character of all time. I like different characters for different reasons in different times of my life. I love Harry Potter. I think he's a great character. I love Katniss Everdeen. I think she's a great character. Particularly in a great story in a great world, I think, and she's a great character. I love Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I thought he was my favorite in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And this tag didn't specifically say it had to be booked. Who's your favorite book character? Just a character, so I put him on the list. But I really loved about him that he was fun. He was a lot of fun. He had a fun sense of humor. He was a fun little narcissism about himself. But when he decided he was going to try and be good, I liked his story better than Angel's. For anyone who's seen the TV show or knows the series, Angel was a vampire who had been cursed with his soul. So now that he had a soul, he felt bad for all the things he had done before, and he's a good guy now because he has a soul. And Spike managed to be a good guy even though he wasn't given his soul. Even though he was a soulless monster, he still found it in him to be a good person, at least some of the time, and to try to be a good person, to want to be a good person. There were times when he worked really hard to try to be a better person. He didn't have any soul trying to teach him to do that, or trying to urge him to do that. He just wanted to be better. So I like that character. But there are just tons of characters I like, and on any given day I could give you a different answer. The last prompt is the star. What is a book that you look forward to rereading every year? I used to be a massive rereader, and I'm trying really hard not to be a rereader now. But, if I had to say, I would say Hunger Games is a book that I really enjoy rereading. I really enjoy the part of Hunger Games that comes in the beginning before the games. Like in the movie, it's like the first 10 minutes of the movie. But in the book, in the first book and in the second book, you go through quite a lot of book before you get to the actual games. In the first book, it's world building and stuff like that. In the second, it's also kind of world building because you're trying to say what their life is like now that they're in the tribute home or the Victor's Village, I guess I mean. and what it's like to be a victor, and instead of a we don't really know you that well, tribute, what it's like to be a victor, and then to be thrown back into the games and so on. So I really enjoy those parts in the beginning where, when I'm reading it, I really get a more in-depth idea of the world and the character and stuff. So I enjoy rereading those when I reread. Lastly is tag. Tag whomever. Tag. But I don't like tagging people yet. I don't know if I feel comfortable saying you specifically drop everything. So I'm not going to do that. But I will say you specifically drop everything if you want to. If you're watching this and you thought this was a fun tag and you want to create a video like this, please do. Please do it. You can link it back to my video. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can just do a video. I'd be interested in seeing it. If you don't want to answer all the questions, just a couple of them, and you just want to put it in the comment section down below, do that. Give me a couple of examples of the biggest book that you've ever read, or the one with the most colorful cover on it, or the one that you look forward to rereading every year. Answer just a couple of the questions, the ones that make sense to you, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I enjoy doing tag videos. I know they're kind of fluffy, but I still enjoy doing them, and I enjoy being tagged. So if you're watching this and you want to tag me on something, do so. I will do the video. So I appreciate Nicole. Thank you very much for tagging me, and for anybody who intends to do this, I think that's really cool, and I hope to see it, or you put it in my comment section. And I hope you like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.